After my sister got me fired, my family demanded handouts from my new, better job. My only reply was to smile and say, "Check your mailboxes." The look on their faces when they opened the envelopes was priceless. Autumn 2008. I never thought a single phone call could unravel 2.5 years of careful work, but then again, I never thought my own sister would be the one to place it. Family betrayal, I would learn, cuts far deeper than any stranger's knife. After Ashley got me fired, I rebuilt my life from nothing, finding an unexpected path that led to a prosperity I never imagined. When word of my success spread, my family, who had long since forgotten I existed, suddenly reappeared, hands outstretched, demanding their share. Their sense of entitlement, after years of subtle sabotage and outright dismissal, left me speechless. So I simply smiled and said, "Check your mailboxes tomorrow." The look on their faces when they did would be priceless. Growing up in a quintessential Boston suburb, our family, the Adamses, was a picture of suburban normalcy. We had a colonial home, weekend barbecues, and mandatory family game nights. But behind the closed doors, the dynamics were anything but healthy. From my earliest memories, I was designated the responsible one. By age 10, I was helping with household finances, ensuring my younger sister Ashley got to school on time, and serving as a mediator for my constantly bickering parents, Margaret and Richard. Meanwhile, Ashley was granted a perpetual childhood, encouraged to avoid any and all responsibility. 2 years my junior, Ashley, now 26, had been raised to believe the world revolved around her. She was a conventional beauty, blonde hair, blue eyes, the cheerleader type, a vision my parents doted on. I, on the other hand, was treated more like the castle staff. "Ashley has a sensitive spirit," my mother would say whenever Ashley threw a tantrum about chores. "You're just naturally more capable, Autumn." The implicit translation: handle everything so Ashley doesn't have to be inconvenienced. My older brother, Ethan, 30 at the time, found it easier to side with Ashley, always urging, "Just let her have her way, it's not worth the drama." He had learned early that keeping Ashley happy meant a peaceful life, even if it came at my expense. Despite this profoundly imbalanced treatment, I threw myself into academics, determined to forge my own path. I maintained a perfect GPA, won a partial scholarship to Boston University, and worked 2 part-time jobs to cover the rest of my tuition. My parents, in contrast, fully funded Ashley's attempts at 3 different colleges, none of which she completed. "College just isn't the right environment for my creativity," she'd declare after each dropout, a sentiment my parents would dutifully echo. Her pattern of failed endeavors, as a yoga instructor, a life coach, a fashion vlogger, and a real estate agent, was always funded by my parents, despite their supposed tight budget. When I graduated with my marketing degree, I organized a small dinner to celebrate. Ashley arrived 2 hours late, complained about the limited vegan options despite her newfound dietary whim of the week, and then burst into tears when my father toasted my accomplishment, successfully making the entire evening about comforting her. I secured a position at Meridian Marketing, a mid-sized firm in downtown Boston. The starting salary was modest, but it offered benefits and clear growth potential. I rented a tiny 1-bedroom apartment, bought my professional wardrobe from thrift stores, and began building my career brick by careful brick. Ashley's resentment festered with each small success I achieved. When I was featured in a local business publication, she accidentally spilled red wine on my only professional dress the night before an important client meeting. During a marketing conference where I was invited to speak, she called me repeatedly until I was forced to silence my phone, missing a crucial call from my boss. The most egregious incident occurred before a major interview for a position at a larger firm. I had spent months saving for a navy blue suit for the occasion, and the morning of the interview, I discovered it was covered in foundation makeup that wouldn't come out. Ashley, of course, claimed she was simply looking for a tissue in my room and must have knocked over her makeup. I missed the interview and the opportunity vanished. Despite these transparent acts of sabotage, I continued to maintain a relationship with my family. Sunday dinners were mandatory, and I endured Ashley's backhanded compliments and my parents' subtle dismissals of my achievements. "Marketing isn't really changing the world, though, is it?" my father would say after I shared news of a successful campaign. Yet, when Ashley announced her latest plan to become an influencer, they were all enthusiasm and support. I maintained the peace, swallowed my frustrations, and focused on my career at Meridian. After 2 years of consistent performance, I was being considered for a junior management position. The promotion meant a significant salary increase and more creative control. I had no idea that Ashley had been watching my progress with growing bitterness, or that she was about to take drastic action to derail everything I had worked so hard to build. 2.5 years into my tenure at Meridian, I was thriving. My client retention rate was the highest in the department, and I'd secured 3 new major accounts in the last quarter alone. My boss, Victoria Pearson, was hinting at my future with the company. The position of junior marketing director was within reach, a role that had opened up when my mentor, Derek, accepted a job in Chicago. Victoria had asked me to prepare a presentation for the executive team, an audition of sorts, outlining my vision for the department's future. I spent weeks preparing, fine-tuning every slide, and practicing my delivery until it felt flawless. The presentation was scheduled for a Thursday morning. On Wednesday night, I called my family to cancel our usual Sunday dinner, explaining that I needed the weekend to prepare. "Of course your job comes first," my mother said with a familiar sigh. "Ashley was planning to announce some big news, but I suppose that can wait." The guilt rose in my throat, but I held my ground. "This is really important, Mom. I'll make it up to Ashley next weekend." Later that night, Ashley called. "Way to ruin my special announcement," she snapped. I apologized and asked what her news was. "Wouldn't you like to know?" she shot back. "Some sister you are. Always thinking about yourself and your precious career." She hung up before I could explain. I went to bed feeling uneasy, but I pushed the feeling aside, needing to focus on the next day. Thursday morning, I woke early, put on my best charcoal gray suit, and headed to the office an hour early to set up. But when I swiped my key card at the building entrance, the security panel flashed red. Denied. I tried again, with the same result. Donna, the receptionist, answered my call with a strange tone. "I'm sorry, Miss Adams, but I've been instructed not to let you in. Miss Pearson would like you to call her directly." Confused and increasingly alarmed, I called Victoria. Her voice, normally warm, was now ice cold. "I'm extremely disappointed in you, Autumn. After everything we've built, to throw it all away like this is beyond unprofessional." "Victoria, I don't understand," I stammered. "Don't insult me by pretending." "You didn't call me at 11:30 last night," she said. "Clearly intoxicated, you said you were quitting effective immediately. You claimed the company was a joke, and that I was the biggest joke of all. You made racist comments about our clients, and said vile things about your colleagues. I recorded the call, as company policy requires, so don't bother denying it." My blood ran cold. "Victoria, that wasn't me. I was home preparing for today's presentation. I would never save it, Autumn. Your personal belongings will be couriered to your home. Your final paycheck will be processed. Do not attempt to enter the building again, or we will involve security." The call ended with a sharp click. I stood on the sidewalk outside my office building, dizzy with shock. People I had worked with for years walked past, averting their eyes or giving me looks of disgust. Finally, Brian from accounting cautiously approached. "Autumn, you should go home." Everyone heard about the call. "Brian, I didn't make any call. Someone is impersonating me." He looked uncomfortable but handed me his phone. "Someone recorded a part of it, and it's been shared around the office. Listen." A voice that sounded horrifyingly like mine slurred terrible things about Victoria and the company. The intonation was so similar, but with subtle differences that only those who knew me intimately would notice. That's when it hit me. Ashley. She had always been able to do a perfect impression of me, a talent she had used since childhood to prank my friends and embarrass me. "Brian, that's not me. That's my sister." She can mimic my voice. The pity in his eyes told me he didn't believe me. Just go home, Autumn. Don't make this worse. Security arrived and escorted me off the property. As I walked home in a daze, a text from an unfamiliar number buzzed on my phone. It was another colleague, sharing a longer recording of the call. I forced myself to listen, confirming my suspicions. The cadence, the particular phrases she used, it was undeniably Ashley's imitation, convincing enough to fool my boss. I went straight to my parents' house. Ashley was sitting in the kitchen with my mother, scrolling through Instagram. You called my boss pretending to be me, I said, my voice shaking. You got me fired. Ashley looked up, momentarily startled, before her face settled into an expression of false innocence. What are you talking about? Don't lie to me. You called my office last night, imitated my voice, and got me fired the day of my big presentation. My mother stepped between us. Autumn, calm down. Why would Ashley do something like that? Because she's always been jealous of me. Because I was about to get promoted. Because she can't stand to see me succeed. Ashley's facade finally cracked. A smirk flashed across her face before she burst into tears. I was just playing a joke. I didn't think they'd actually fire you. I was going to call back today and say it was a prank. My father entered the kitchen. What's all this shouting? I explained what had happened, showing him the recording on my phone. Instead of being horrified, he frowned at me. You're overreacting. Ashley made a mistake. She didn't mean any harm. A mistake? She deliberately got me fired. My reputation in the industry is ruined. No one's going to hire me after this. Ashley sniffled. It was just supposed to be funny. You're always so serious about your job. I thought you'd laugh. My mother put an arm around Ashley. You know your sister has a different sense of humor. And honestly, if they fired you that easily, maybe it wasn't a good place to work anyway. I was in disbelief. Are you serious? She impersonated me, said racist things in my name, and burned my professional reputation to the ground. My brother Ethan, who had been summoned by my mother's frantic text, arrived and, after hearing both sides, shrugged. It's not great what Ashley did, but you're making it worse by freaking out. Just explain to your boss what happened. I tried. They don't believe me. They have a recording of me saying horrible things. Then maybe take this as a sign to try something new. My father suggested, as if I had simply had a minor setback. You were always talking about how stressful that job was anyway. I looked at my family, Ashley's crocodile tears, my mother's protective embrace, my father's dismissive attitude, Ethan's indifference. I realized a fundamental truth. They would never take my side against Ashley. They would never hold her accountable for anything. I need you all to acknowledge what she did, I said, my voice quiet. I need an apology. And I need you to understand how serious this is. Instead, I got variations of, you're overreacting, it was just a joke, and you'll find another job. Not one person in my family truly acknowledged the gravity of what Ashley had done. I left their house that day with a clarity I'd never had before. The people who were supposed to love me unconditionally had just conditionally excused the deliberate sabotage of my career. Something fundamental broke inside me, and paradoxically, something else grew stronger. The weeks following my firing were some of the darkest of my life. I filed for unemployment, but my termination for cause complicated the claim. My emergency savings evaporated quickly, and I was soon skipping meals to stretch my budget and had received a notice from my landlord about my late rent. The Boston marketing community was tight-knit, and word had spread. No matter how I explained the situation, the damage was done. Who would believe it was my sister impersonating me? The story sounded desperate and implausible. I avoided my family's calls, unable to bear their dismissive attitude or Ashley's superficial apologies, which always circled back to how I was overreacting. One particularly low evening, sitting at my kitchen table with spreadsheets, I received a text from my mother. Ashley's moving to New York for an amazing opportunity with a social media company. We're having a celebration dinner Sunday. Your presence is expected. No questions about how I was doing, no acknowledgement of my situation, just a command to celebrate the sister who had destroyed my career. I didn't respond and didn't attend. The next day, I pawned my grandmother's silver bracelet, the only meaningful piece of jewelry I owned, to cover my rent. That afternoon, more out of desperation than enthusiasm, I forced myself to attend a free tech industry mixer. I felt conspicuously out of place in my one remaining professional outfit, now slightly too loose after weeks of budget meals. "You look like you could use this more than me," a voice said beside me. A woman in her 50s with silver-streaked black hair held out a glass of wine. The open bar is the only reason half these people show up anyway. Is it that obvious? I managed a smile, accepting the glass. "I'm Elaine Winters," she said, extending her hand. "Chief Operating Officer at Nexus Technologies." "Autumn Adams," I replied, "currently between opportunities." "Honest. I like that." Elaine's sharp eyes assessed me. "What's your field?" I briefly explained my marketing background, carefully avoiding the details of my last position. "Interesting. We need someone who understands traditional marketing. All these tech kids think social media is the only channel that matters." She pulled out a business card. "We're a fintech startup developing an app to help people manage shared expenses. Come by tomorrow at 10. I can't promise anything glamorous, but we need smart people who understand how to communicate with audiences over 30. I stared at the card. "Just like that? Just like that. I trust my instincts. Everyone here is trying to be someone. You're just trying to survive. That kind of hunger is valuable." I accepted the position on the spot. It was several steps down from my previous role, but it was a lifeline. The work was initially mundane, but the environment was a revelation. Ideas were valued regardless of who suggested them, and failures were treated as learning opportunities. 3 weeks in, I suggested developing a series of animated videos to market their app to non-tech-savvy users. "That's actually brilliant," said Noah, the skeptical product manager. "We've been so focused on the technical features we forgot about the emotional component." Elaine gave me a small nod of approval, and I felt something I hadn't experienced in weeks: competence, value, and purpose. My tiny apartment became my sanctuary. I deleted social media apps, journaled to process my feelings, and adopted a rescue dog, a nervous one-eyed terrier mix named Bella who had also been discarded. Gradually, I rebuilt my life. I made one friend, Madison, the office manager at Nexus, who invited me to a weekly trivia night. "Family drama," she said when I vaguely explained why I always declined invitations on Sundays. "Been there. My brother stole my identity and ran up $20,000 in credit card debt when I was in college." "How did you handle it?" I asked. "Press charges. Haven't spoken to him in 7 years. Best decision I ever made." Her straightforwardness was a breath of fresh air after years of my family's emotional manipulation. Exactly 6 months and 2 weeks after joining Nexus, our small team gathered for a meeting. Elaine entered with a bottle of champagne, followed by the CEO, Daniel. "We did it," she announced, popping the cork. "Venture capital funding, $15 million. The room erupted in cheers. Daniel explained that a major investment firm had been impressed with our user growth and retention rates, metrics directly tied to the marketing strategies I'd implemented. "Your video series sealed the deal," he told me afterward. "They said it demonstrated we understand our market in a way most fintech companies don't." The funding changed everything. We moved to proper offices, the team expanded, and I received a promotion to marketing director with a salary that made my eyes widen. The promotion came with stock options, a generous allocation that, at the time, felt like monopoly money. 9 months later, everything changed again. Our app's user base had grown exponentially, and a major financial technology corporation made an acquisition offer the board couldn't refuse. The day the deal was finalized, Daniel called me into his office. "Your options are fully vested because of the acquisition," he explained. "At the agreed share price, They're worth approximately $2.7 million. I stared at him, certain I had misheard. Million. He smiled. Welcome to the club, Autumn. Sometimes being in the right place at the right time pays off. After taxes, it would be less, of course, but still, I had gone from pawning my grandmother's bracelet to having more money than I'd ever imagined. The acquiring company retained most of Nexus's team, including me, now a marketing executive at a major corporation. I bought my grandmother's bracelet back from the pawn shop, along with every other piece that reminded me of her. Then I purchased a beautiful townhouse in Beacon Hill, a peaceful sanctuary I'd always wanted. Bella upgraded from a nervous rescue to a pampered princess. I started seeing a therapist to work through the complex feelings about my family. You've achieved remarkable success, Dr. Patterson observed. How does that feel in the context of your family's lack of support? Validating, I admitted, but also lonely. I wish I had people who truly cared to share it with. This realization led me to focus on building genuine connections. I deepened my friendship with Madison, joined a photography club, and volunteered at an animal shelter. Throughout this period, I maintained my distance from my family. I hadn't blocked them, but I rarely responded to their superficial texts. I changed my email address and moved without providing my new one, quietly disconnecting from their ability to reach me in person. I wasn't hiding, but I needed space to heal and grow without their toxic influence. 16 months after the day Ashley got me fired, I was featured in the Boston Business Journal's 40 Under 40 list highlighting local business leaders. The article included my photo and a brief profile detailing my role in Nexus's success. 3 days later, my phone lit up with notifications, texts, calls, emails from every member of my family, suddenly very interested in reconnecting with their long-lost daughter and sister. So proud of you, sweetheart, my mother texted, as if we'd been in regular contact. Always knew you'd make it big, sis. From Ethan, who had never reached out during my unemployment. And finally from Ashley. OMG, you're famous. We have so much to catch up on. Lunch this weekend? Love you. I placed my phone face down on my desk. The family that had dismissed my career, enabled my sabotage, and abandoned me in my darkest moment was now eager to bask in the reflection of my success. Dr. Patterson had warned me this might happen. When you visibly succeed, toxic family members often reappear, not because they've changed, but because they see potential benefit to themselves. I waited a week before responding, using the time to center myself. When I finally agreed to meet, I was calm, prepared, and protected by the boundaries I had established. The restaurant I chose for our reunion was a neutral, upscale bistro downtown. I arrived early, selecting a corner table with a clear view of the entrance. My parents arrived, looking just as I remembered, yet somehow smaller. My mother's eyes widened as she took in my tailored blazer, expensive but subtle jewelry, and confident posture. Autumn, she exclaimed, moving in for a hug I didn't return. You look different. Professional success agrees with me, I replied, gesturing for them to sit. My father's handshake was firmer than usual. Always knew you had potential, kiddo. Just needed the right opportunity. The cognitive dissonance was staggering. This was the same man who had dismissed my ambitions and told me my firing was probably for the best. Ethan arrived next with a new girlfriend, Kayla, who seemed inappropriately excited to meet me. Autumn's the tech executive I was telling you about, he said, his voice carrying just a bit too far. Finally, Ashley made her entrance, 20 minutes late, as usual. My successful sister, she squealed, drawing attention from nearby tables. Look at you. We're practically twins, now that I'm in the corporate world, too. You're working in corporate now? I asked. Well, I'm consulting for an influencer marketing agency, she said vaguely. Very similar to what you do, just more creative. For the first half hour, the conversation remained superficial. No one asked substantive questions about my life or acknowledged our estrangement. It was during the main course that their true agenda emerged. So, my father said, refilling his wine glass, Your mother and I have been thinking about retirement. That's nice, I replied neutrally. The thing is, he continued, the market hasn't been kind to our investments. The house needs a new roof, and there's the matter of your mother's medical bills from last year. It was the first I'd heard of any health concerns. He pressed on. We've been looking at our options, and we're wondering if you might be in a position to help us out. Just until the market recovers. And there it was. The real reason for the reunion. What kind of help were you thinking of? I asked, though I already knew. He named a figure that would have been my entire annual salary at Meridian. Before I could respond, Ethan jumped in. Speaking of opportunities, I've been developing a business plan. He pulled out a folder containing 3 poorly formatted pages. It's an app that connects dog owners for playdates, like Tinder, but for dogs. Sounds like the dog park, I observed. No. It's completely different, he insisted. All I need is seed funding. About half of what Mom and Dad need should cover initial development. Kayla nodded eagerly, clearly promised a role in this imaginary company. Ashley, not to be outdone, placed her hand on mine. I know we've had our differences, Autumn. That silly phone prank? Water under the bridge, right? My jaw tightened at her casual characterization of the deliberate sabotage that had upended my life. The thing is, she continued, oblivious to my reaction, I'm this close to making it big as an influencer. She held her thumb and forefinger a millimeter apart. I just need professional equipment and a proper studio setup. Maybe 50,000? I'll pay you back with endorsements for your company. I looked around the table at my family. These people who had dismissed, sabotaged, and abandoned me now united in their expectation that I would finance their lives. Let me understand, I said carefully. You want me to give you money after everything that happened? My mother's expression turned wounded. Sweetheart, we're family. Families help each other. Where was that family spirit when Ashley got me fired? When I was skipping meals to pay rent? You're still upset about that? Ashley rolled her eyes. It was over a year ago. And clearly it worked out for the best. No thanks to any of you, I replied. My father leaned forward. Look, Autumn. We raised you. Is it so wrong to expect some gratitude now that you've made it? The entitlement was breathtaking. In their minds, my success wasn't something I had earned despite their lack of support. It was something they deserved to benefit from. I need time to think about this, I said finally, signaling for the check. Don't take too long, my father said. The roof won't fix itself. I paid the exorbitant bill without comment and left the restaurant with a promise to be in touch. In the taxi home, I leaned my head against the cool window and let the tears come, not for the money they wanted, but for the family I'd never truly had. Over the next week, their messages increased in frequency and urgency. My mother sent photos of the leaking roof. Ethan forwarded amateurish business projections. Ashley sent links to the exact camera equipment she needed. During a session with Dr. Patterson, I vented my frustration. They don't care about me. They just see me as an ATM now. What do you want from them? She asked. Accountability. Recognition of how they treated me. Genuine remorse. And if they're incapable of that? The question hung in the air. After much reflection, I made my decision. I texted each family member the same message. I've given your request some thought. Expect something in your mailboxes next week. Their responses were immediate and enthusiastic. I politely declined my mother's suggestion of a celebratory dinner and set about preparing 4 very special packages. This wasn't about revenge. It was about accountability, boundaries, and offering them something more valuable than money, the truth. For Ashley, I compiled a comprehensive file. It contained a printed transcript of her prank call to my boss and documentation of the financial hardship that followed. I included overdue rent notices and the pawn ticket for my grandmother's bracelet. I added a letter from my therapist outlining the psychological impact of workplace sabotage. Finally, I added a confirmation of a $5,000 donation made in Ashley's name to a workplace bullying prevention organization, along with mandatory attendance at their next workshop. My personal note read, "Ashley, I've forgiven you for my own peace, but forgiveness doesn't mean financing your lifestyle or maintaining a relationship that harms me. I wish you growth and self-awareness." For my parents, I created a different package. It contained financial literacy books, retirement planning guides, and contact information for legitimate financial advisors. I included a detailed letter documenting every instance of their emotional favoritism, their dismissal of my achievements, and their enabling of Ashley's behavior. My note read, "Mom and Dad, I'm not the family bank. My success doesn't obligate me to fund your retirement or compensate for poor financial decisions." The roof didn't suddenly start leaking the day my business success was published. I've included resources that will actually help your situation, along with the name of a family therapist who specializes in healing damaged parent-child relationships. If you ever wish to develop a genuine connection based on mutual respect, that would be my preferred investment. For Ethan, I created a package addressing his pattern of taking the path of least resistance. I included a proper business plan template with annotations showing the gaps in his dog app concept, market research, and a gift certificate for career counseling sessions. His note was shorter. "Ethan, I'm offering you something better than money, the tools to create your own success rather than attaching yourself to mine. I'd welcome a relationship with a brother who stands on his own and stands up for what's right." And for Kayla, Ethan's girlfriend, I sent a small coffee shop gift card with a simple note. "Be careful whose family you marry into. Best wishes, Autumn." I sent all 4 packages on a Monday morning and turned off my phone for the day, taking Bella for a long hike. I needed space from the inevitable fallout. When I returned and checked my messages that evening, the reaction was exactly as I had expected: outrage, disbelief, and accusations of cruelty. My mother left 7 tearful voicemails. My father's messages were colder, calling me ungrateful and selfish. Ashley's reaction was the most extreme, a string of incoherent, angry messages followed by a final text. "You'll regret this. Nobody treats me this way." I felt a strange calm as I read their responses. Not one of them engaged with the actual content of what I'd sent. Not one acknowledged the patterns I had documented or expressed any interest in building a healthier relationship. They were angry because I had refused to be used, nothing more. That night, I sat on my balcony, watching the Boston skyline, Bella curled contentedly in my lap. I felt lighter somehow, as if I had finally put down a heavy burden, the burden of seeking approval from people incapable of providing it. Dr. Patterson had warned me this might happen. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself and others is to hold up a mirror to dysfunctional patterns. They may not like what they see, but you've given them the opportunity to grow. The weeks that followed were predictably stormy, with my parents enlisting extended family members to plead their case. According to these relatives, I had become suddenly wealthy and refused to help my struggling family out of spite. Ashley's sabotage and my parents' enabling behavior were conveniently omitted from this narrative. But I maintained a simple, consistent response. "There's more to this story than you've been told. I'm open to healing relationships based on mutual respect, not financial transactions." Most of these intermediaries retreated when they realized I wouldn't be guilt-tripped into compliance. The most surprising response came from Ethan. A month after receiving his package, he sent a text asking to meet for coffee. "I've been thinking about what you wrote," he began. "About taking the easy path. You're right. I've always just gone along with whatever causes the least drama, even when I knew things weren't right. What Ashley did to you, I knew it was wrong. I should have said something." It was the first time any family member had acknowledged the validity of my experience, and it nearly brought me to tears. We talked for 3 hours. He didn't ask for money or favors, just the opportunity to build a more honest relationship. It was a start, a small one, but genuine. 6 months after my packages were delivered, I received an unexpected email from Ashley. The subject line was simply, "I'm sorry." The message was brief but startling. The donation you made forced me to attend that workplace bullying workshop. I went, planning to roll my eyes through the whole thing, but some of the stories people shared, they messed me up. I saw myself in the bullies they described. I'm not saying this changes anything between us, and I'm not asking for money. I just wanted you to know I'm starting to understand what I did to you. It wasn't a comprehensive apology, but it was the first time Ashley had acknowledged causing harm without immediately minimizing her actions. I responded with a simple, "Thank you for letting me know," leaving the door cracked without rushing to reconciliation. My parents remained entrenched in their position. At Christmas, they sent a card with no personal message, a performative gesture maintaining the fiction that they had done nothing wrong. I donated to a retirement planning nonprofit in their name, and sent a card expressing hope that someday we might build a relationship based on mutual respect. As for me, life continued to flourish. My career advanced, my friendships deepened, and Bella and I settled into our peaceful townhouse. The most profound lesson I learned wasn't about money or family dynamics. It was about the liberation that comes from defining your own worth rather than accepting others' limited valuation. It was about the courage to stand in your truth, even when voices from your past insist you should acquiesce for the sake of peace. True peace, I discovered, doesn't come from appeasing those who would diminish you. It comes from building a life aligned with your own values, surrounded by people who celebrate, rather than sabotage your growth. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can send to someone's mailbox isn't what they want, but what they need, a mirror reflecting the truth, an invitation to growth, and a boundary that honors both your worth and their potential to become better.